News Talk 970 WMAY with Bishop on air. Live on this Friday, March 11th, and tonight, the Libertarian Party of Illinois is going to be holding a presidential debate between Libertarian candidates to be president. And by the end of the weekend, they expect to nominate one of those. And we have one of those candidates in studio with us right now. Governor Gary Johnson joining us. Governor, thank you for taking time. How are you?
Greg, great to be with you. And in Illinois for presidential debate. This is going to be like one of a dozen debates all across the country in different states. The Libertarians will hold their national convention over Memorial Day weekend in Orlando, Florida. And at that convention, they will elect the nominee for the party. In 2012, I was the nominee. Most people don't know it, but I was the bronze medalist in 2012. I got 1% of the vote, 1.3 million votes. Far cry from being elected, but that's you can't get elected if you don't give it a try.
And I want to talk about the hindrance that the two-party system causes for somebody like you who is not finding themselves anymore in the Republicans or Democrat field and just saying, hey, we got to change this. So we'll get to that in a moment. But for those of the listeners who aren't familiar with Gary Johnson, give us an idea of your political genesis and evolution to where you are today.
Well, I gave New Mexicans the same pitch that Donald Trump is giving the country. Look, I'm this successful business guy. I started a one-man handyman business in Albuquerque in 1974 and actually grew it to employ over 1,000. So when I ran for governor of New Mexico, I'd never been involved in politics before. New Mexico's 2-1 Democrat, so my promise was to just bring a common-sense business approach to state government. I think I was really successful doing that. I made a name for myself having vetoed perhaps more legislation than the other 49 governors in the country combined. I vetoed 750 bills. I had thousands of line-item vetoes, and really it was about government growth, government spending too much. We pay lip service to all sorts of issues, and we attach money to those issues, but does it really end up making a difference? Well, I made the call that, hey, it really doesn't make that much difference. I was more outspoken than any governor in the country regarding school choice, the notion of bringing competition to public education. I think I got a lot of notoriety for being the highest elected official in the country to call for the legalization of marijuana. I did that in 1999. That was good news. Bad news is 2016, I'm still the highest elected official to call for the legalization of marijuana, which, look, we've got 2.3 million people behind bars in this country. We have the highest incarceration rate of any country in the world. There's a reason for that. We lock people up for arguably victimless crimes. I mean, you don't have to agree with somebody smoking marijuana, but you know what? If they're not doing any harm to anyone else other than arguably themselves, shouldn't they be allowed to do that? Well, that's a libertarian perspective. A libertarian perspective is really being fiscally conservative and socially live and let live as long as your personal actions don't adversely affect others. And right now, there is a real Islamic terrorist threat out there. It's real. But is it best addressed with our military interventions? No, it's not. Is the Islamic threat, is Islamic terrorism due to our military intervention? No. But our military interventions have not made things better. They've made things worse. Dropping bombs have made things worse. Boots on the ground? No. Drone strikes in which we're killing thousands of innocent people, not making things better.
Gary Johnson joins us. He is running for the Libertarian nomination to be president, and he is in studio with us, News Talk 970 WMAY. He's going to be debating other Libertarians tonight here in Springfield. We'll get you details on that coming up. But you did lay out a couple of different issues concerning Libertarian philosophy and how you fit in there. When did you realize that you didn't want to be a Republican anymore and instead wanted to be an outspoken Libertarian?
Well, I may have been a libertarian all along, and having never been involved in politics before, made the decision to run as a Republican because when it came to running as a libertarian, I saw that as a dead end. To me, there was just no way that you could get elected. I do think that the majority of people in this country are libertarians. They just don't know it. And Greg, we were talking just before we went on air about the website isidewith.com. I would love for everybody listening to go to that website and answer the 36 questions and see which presidential candidate you are most aligned with. So for me, really, liberty, freedom, it's really important. And when it comes to taxes and big government, that's money that I'm having to give the government as opposed to me keeping that money and living my life as I see fit. So really, it's about small government, and then it's about the recognition that all of us as individuals should be able to make decisions in our own lives that only affect our own lives. Very, very important. And like I say, from a military intervention standpoint, what we're doing is making the situation worse in this world. We need to contain terrorism in the Middle East, and just like Saudi Arabia and the Emirates are doing right now, we need to cut off the funding to terrorism. And that's something we can do with our brains and not bombs.
Now 8:14 with News Talk 970 WMAY this morning, sitting in studio with Governor Gary Johnson. He is here to tell you about himself, the libertarian philosophy, and he's going to be in town debating other libertarians for the state Libertarian Party convention that's happening in Springfield. Let's talk about this two-party process. Here in Illinois, I've been very critical of our primary. We have a closed primary. You have to go and declare a party publicly, then you get put on a voter roll for either a Republican or a Democrat. There's no libertarian on the primary ballot. Libertarian candidates, if they want to, they have to wait until after the March primary to actually file their petitions and to do all the paperwork and everything. That's after months of hearing the Republican-Democrat line over and over and over again. What does this do for the voters? Is it justified?
Well, what it does is people generally think that there are only two parties when there aren't. Currently, I'm suing the Presidential Debate Commission. Bruce Fine is actually filing the lawsuit. Bruce's claim to fame is that he brought Nixon down in Watergate. He says this lawsuit against the Presidential Debate Commission is the biggest thing that he's done in his life. I got to tell you, putting that in context, that sounds pretty amazing. But the contention is that Democrats and Republicans that politics is a business. In my opinion, not much of a stretch when you got $2 billion now on both sides. And that they collude. So we're suing on the grounds of the Sherman Act, that in fact they collude with one another to exclude everybody else. And how do they do that? Well, the Presidential Debate Commission sounds very governmental, sounds very nonpartisan, but it's made up of Republicans and Democrats. It came into existence after Ross Perot was in the presidential debates, and the idea was to exclude everyone else from being able to participate. The League of Women Voters had always sponsored the presidential debates, and in a very highly publicized letter to the American people said that this is a fraud being perpetuated on the American public. So there is the opportunity there's no way that a third party gets elected unless the third party is in the general election debates. It's just not going to happen. It's not possible. What the Presidential Debate Commission says is that you have to be at 15% in the polls to be in the debates. Well, Greg, in 2012, how many polls did you see that had my name alongside of Barack Obama and Mitt Romney? I dare say not one. So how do you get to 15% if you're not even listed in the polls? And our contention is that you should be in the presidential debates if you're on the ballot in enough states to mathematically be elected. Libertarian Party is going to be the only third party on the ballot in all 50 states. If I'm the Libertarian nominee, which I'm seeking that nomination, I'm the third party. I mean, whomever the Libertarian nominee is the third party. So all this talk about third party, because of deadlines that have passed, right now there's no third party that will be on the ballot in all 50 states. It's not possible given deadlines that have already passed.
Governor Gary Johnson joins us. He's running to be the Libertarian candidate for the presidential election coming up. We'll have more with him coming up after the break, including your phone calls at listener contact line 629-7970.